welcome to EBTV's 2022 Township Council Candidates Forum. My name is Alan Brodman, and I am your moderator for the evening. Tonight, we televise the forums from the East Brunswick Town Council chambers. We have two forums this evening. This one will be the 6 candidates running for 3 open seats that are 4-year terms. A member of the local press will be asking questions of the candidates running for Township Council. We are pleased to welcome Maureen Burzak from Tap Into East Brunswick. Unfortunately, our second reporter had to cancel due to illness. Our candidates representing the Republican Party are Dave Herrera, Antoinette Evola, and Neal Shah. Our candidates representing the Democratic Party are Kevin McEvoy, Jim Wendell, and Dana Winston. We'll begin our program with 2-minute opening statements by each candidate. The order of the opening statements was determined by random drawing earlier this evening. 2-minute closing statements will be given in the reverse order. After opening statements, our reporter will alternate asking questions to both parties. The party's candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. The opposing party's candidate will then also have 2 minutes to respond. Other candidates may respond for 1 minute once recognized by the moderator. We will alternate so that both parties have equal opportunity for first response. Let's begin with our opening statements. Our first opening statement will be from Dana Winston.
No. You're off right now. There, now you're on.
Hello, my name is Dana Winston, and I'm excited to be running for a position on our town council. Thank you to EBTV, Maureen Burzak, Dr. Brodman, and my fellow candidates, all who are taking time to listen tonight and all whose inspiration and influence has brought me to this moment. It is an honor to be here, and I hope Colin B. and myself have your support and your vote this election. I've lived in East Brunswick for most of my years. From humble beginnings in Queens, New York, my hardworking parents moved us here to what was then the beautiful country to seek a better life for us. I, along with my siblings and cousins, attended St. Bartholomew School. After that, I attended Hammersholt, played varsity softball, and graduated our high school in 1983. I received a BA in communications from Rowan University and took a job in insurance where I worked for over 20 years until I had children. As a stay-at-home mom, I volunteered for everything on the PTA, assisted in the classrooms, the media center, helped my husband coach baseball and basketball, and would host craft evenings to bring people together. Troubled by the blight on Route 18 in 2016, I spoke with then-candidate Mayor Cohen about his plan to address what could be done. He shared and explained his vision, and to this day, I am still excited with this plan. In 2018, in response to the Parkland shooting, I organized a vigil and founded EB for Safe Schools. Shortly after, I found myself a founding member and vice president of the East Brunswick Arts Coalition. From there, my volunteerism branched into art instruction for special needs adults and also seniors at our senior center. I sewed and donated thousands of masks during the pandemic, which led me to establish a now thriving East Brunswick business. I'm a division director for Fast Break Basketball and have served on high school team booster clubs, and also am a member of EBRCC. I also serve on our zoning board. My husband is also an EB native, and our 5 children join in to help whenever they can with whatever we're active with in the moment. We are truly a family that bleeds East Brunswick green. I look forward to continue to give my best to my hometown, and I'm ready to take on the challenges this potential council seat would bring. I'm grateful and humbled by this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next opening statement is from Jim Wendell.
Thank you, Dr. Brodman. I'd like to thank EBTV and Maureen Burzak and the EBTV staff for their time and hard work preparing for this forum and for giving all the candidates the opportunity to speak out to the residents of our town. As well as I would like to thank my parents for moving their family to East Brunswick over 50 years ago and giving me and my brothers the opportunity to grow up in this wonderful town. I've been a lifelong resident of East Brunswick, and I am also a product of the East Brunswick school system. And have been an active volunteer in town for the past 40 years, from volunteering with the local fire department to youth baseball, football, and lacrosse. My wife Barbara and I chose to raise our two boys here in town because of the schools and the township services that I had known throughout my childhood here in East Brunswick. Through my children and their activities, I have continued to be involved within the community. I've served on the board of the St. Bart's Buffaloes youth football for the past 25 years and served as president for the past 10 years. I have been serving on town council for the past 12 years, and I'm very proud of our accomplishments. We've managed to keep the municipal tax rate stable while not cutting any services. We have seen hundreds of new businesses open up town. We are now seeing vacant retail becoming something new and vibrant. Record numbers of roads being repaved year after year. Township departments have applied for and received more than $25 million in grants. And the past year, we even opened up 2 brand new parks for our residents to enjoy. As you can see, our team is all committed East Brunswick residents that have a proven track record of volunteerism throughout East Brunswick and have been dedicated to the residents of town for more than 100 years. When you go to the polls, please re-elect me, Jim Wendell, and my running mates, Kevin McEvoy, Dana Winston, and Dana Zimbicki, the team with proven leadership that you can trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next opening statement is from Kevin McEvoy.
Good evening, residents and friends. Thanks to EBTV for hosting this Township Council Candidates Forum so that you can get to know me. Council Vice President Kevin McEvoy, a fellow resident and Democrat, seeking re-election to the council on November 8th. Above all the trophies that line my bookcases for state championships, the halls of fame and Coach of the Year awards that I have been honored to receive, the distinguished call to duty to serve as the mayor of our township, election to 2 consecutive terms to the Board of Education, and nearing completion of my first term in the council, I have been most sincere in my commitment to public service. And I take that responsibility with great trust, knowing that I have a strong voice in helping to determine your quality of daily life here in East Brunswick. I'm asking you to give me the opportunity to serve you with your support and your vote on November 8th. Whether you vote by mail, early, or in person at the polls, your vote is your voice, a voice in helping to chart the course of our future, our hometown. As your mayor, I had a hand in saving the township multi-million dollars in contracts with utility negotiations. While on the Board of Education, I pioneered the decision to install double vestibules in our schools and implement the use of retired EBPD police officers as security guards. I am, in sum, people-centered, security-focused, and forward-thinking. Like you, I live here in town with my family because of the desirable quality of life we have gained through the services, the utilities, businesses, recreational facilities, parks, and the general way of life. Let me help to support this desirable quality of life for you and your family with your support for me, Kevin McEvoy, for council on Election Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next opening statement is from Dave Herrera.
Thank you. Good evening, East Brunswick. My name is Dave Herrera. I want to thank Maureen for taking some time to ask us some questions and for the council members for joining us in this debate to talk to the community about why we all want to have these seats that are available. I've lived in East Brunswick for 21 years. Me and my mom moved here post 9/11 from Queens, where we were the definition of humble beginnings. To move to a town like East Brunswick that gave me the opportunity to go to an amazing blue ribbon school and be able to walk around in the community, because as a kid who grew up in Queens, we didn't have that kind of life. I graduated East Brunswick High School here. I basically did everything. All my firsts are from East Brunswick. I had my first job here. We opened our first business here, and now I am a business owner in South Plainfield, where we have just made it to the other side of this pandemic, fortunately, which is what prompted my run. A lot of business owners didn't see the other side of this pandemic. In fact, 30% of small business owners closed their doors to never reopen during the pandemic. I was able to keep my business afloat by being adaptive to the times that were changing, being able to come up with new innovative ideas that were going to keep cash flow going, keep people employed, and keep people coming back to the restaurant safely. the thing that I noticed mostly during the pandemic, and the reason why I got involved, is because as these businesses were closing, most people felt that they didn't have anywhere to turn. They didn't have anybody to answer to them, and nobody felt heard. So I started getting involved in coming to these council meetings, and I remember making a phone call and asking somebody what positions were available. And they said, well, there's a town council position. I said, I'll run for that. And obviously, while I'm not overly excited to have to do this again, I am excited to be able to talk to more residents. This year, we have just hit over 12,000 doors of people we've been able to speak to help the residents to be their voice. This is a community that I love. It's a community I've been in. I'm looking to buy my first home here, but we want to make sure that this is a community that everybody feels that way about. So I am asking for my first term. Right? We have impressive resumes over there, and I'm appreciative of all the work that they're done, but I'm asking for you guys to elect me, Dave Herrera, Antoinette Evola, and Neal Shah on November 8th.
Thank you very much. Our next opening statement is from Neal Shah.
Boy.
Hello and good evening. My name is Neal Shah, and I'm running for East Brunswick Town Council. First of all, I'd like to thank EBTV and Maureen for taking the time out to, kind of give us this platform and opportunity. I also want to take this opportunity to express why my family and I love to be a part of this community. We have called East Brunswick home for the past 18 years. This is my children's hometown. My wife is a realtor, and I have been a business owner and a corporate executive. For the past 14 years, I volunteered as a soccer, baseball, and basketball coach, capping off the 2021 and 2022 year with a win in the fast break 7th and 8th grade championships. That has a really nice ring to it, right? Champion of the 7th and 8th grade. Some of what I'm going to bring to the position of East Brunswick Town Council is as follows. I am hardworking. Along with my teammates, we have canvassed thousands of doors in town during this past campaign season. We did this so we can talk to people, listen to what they have to say and what they want, and also to understand their vision for how East Brunswick can flourish. We did not walk to give empty promises or half-truths. I have integrity. I don't want this race to be where I don't want to win this race by stepping on the backs of my fellow neighbors. Because let's face it, we all came to East Brunswick, or we stayed in East Brunswick because of many of the same reasons. And one of those reasons is the people. We do love the people here. Honesty. When entrusted with a great responsibility as the one that will be placed upon us, one must ensure that they do not abuse it or get seduced by it. We are civil servants and should treat this job with servitude and understand that it is a privilege to serve. And finally, why I am motivated to run for this position. I want to change the culture of this board. There's too much one-sided thinking and a feeling of entitlement. If you ever get the opportunity to speak at a town council meeting, you're always greeted by "this is not a back and forth conversation." Well, being a civil servant means you have to take the time to the people who elected you. Again, thank you for giving me the opportunity and privilege to speak for you tonight.
Thank you very much. And our final opening statement is from Antoinette Evola.
Thank you. I want to thank Maureen. I want to thank the EBTV cast for having us here. Thank you for the candidates to come to speak with us tonight. I moved here with my husband and my 2 children 7 years ago. We left New York City because we wanted to have a more stable environment for our children. The way we grew up, obviously, was not anywhere near what East Brunswick's like. So we were battling between a couple of towns, and of course I love to do research, and I did my research and found that the school system in East Brunswick is impeccable. So we obviously chose that, and after doing more research, I started realizing that there's a lot of community involvement here, and I wanted my children to be involved in sports, in activities, and volunteer. So once we bought the house, the year after my children entered the school, so I've been a PTA member and class mom for the last 7 years that my son has been in school. I've been a softball coach for the last 4 years. My son actually plays for the EBBL 12U team, which will be going to Cooperstown next year. And we've been extremely involved here. I've been a small business owner since 2011 when I didn't want to leave my children home anymore. Before that, I was a $1 Million book at Bloomingdale's and Saks Fifth Avenue as a personal shopper. I'm an artist, everybody knows that, but my business isn't art only. I go from town to town and through the entire New Jersey, and I frequent venues, and they give me the space, and I teach my classes. What I've been able to learn in that time is what people want and what people need. I see what thrives in other towns, and I see what we're lacking here. I love East Brunswick. I want my grandchildren to grow up in East Brunswick. The schools are amazing, but unfortunately, I've knocked on over 5,000 doors personally, and I've noticed that there's a lack of communication between the residents and the township. The township seems to think that the residents want one thing, but the residents actually are telling me another. I want to be able to give the elderly in this community a reason to stay and keep their money here with us and thank them for the time that they spent here throughout their life. I want to be able to make Route 18 a place where you can go shopping so you don't have to go to different towns to go buy your clothes or your food or your supplies. I want to be able to make my children proud, and that's why I'm running.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the questioning aspect. Ms. Burzak, you'll be asking the questions. Republicans have the first response.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all tonight, and I'd like to thank you for your courtesy in responding to my request for questions and responses that will be shared on Tap Into East Brunswick over the next 4 weeks. And it is my pleasure to have my 7th year here doing these debates. So, let's go. The East Brunswick Public Schools receive 62% of all local taxes paid to the township. Right now, there are plans for the construction of a new high school. How can the township contribute to the cost for construction without creating a burden on taxpayers?
Okay, I guess I'll take this one because it's the numbers. Honestly, the way that East Brunswick has currently created the apartments on Route 18, the tax ratables that are coming in, that should actually pay for a lot of the school. And what I do feel that East Brunswick has the opportunity to continuously focus on redevelopment. They're focusing on way too much on one area. We need to increase that. We need to be able to bring higher rated or higher tax ratables in town that will actually bring, for example, I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling a little bit, but for example, FedEx, it's coming out at $800,000 a year, right? The apartment complexes and homes, it would take almost 80, 90 homes at $10,000 a year to come up with what one building like FedEx would be. So we need to come up with more of those types of businesses that have the high tax ratables in areas that are plighted, not areas that could be used for multifaceted reasons.
Democrats?
Yes, with regard to a new high school, before we move so quickly, Maureen, into a new high school, there has to be some investigation, discussion, architectural design for an addition to the existing high school. Because I think if you were to put out a referendum right now on a brand new high school in and around somewhere between $300 and $350 million, it's going to be a real hard sell. So if the Board of Education, since it is really that side of Route 18, that governing body, if they decide to move forward on a new high school, I think that they can probably come up with about $150 million in grants, because as Councilman Wendell said in his opening statement, it's overwhelming the amount of money that's out there. Then if you take a look at some of the, if you look more specifically at the surplus that the Board of Education has, they might be able to come up with $200 million before they even make any decision with regard to throwing this out to the township on a referendum. I think that the Board of Ed could probably figure out a way, spanning the next couple of years, to come up with the money instead of calling on a referendum. Maybe even something like a pilot. Maybe,
Yes.
Councilman Wendell, you can chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, the township is already committed, the mayor and the governing body are all in line with trying to contribute to a new high school with our pilot payments that we're going to be receiving from these new developments. Yes, as far as redevelopment along Route 18 and Edgeboro Road, we turned a property that was turning $78,000 into an $800,000 revenue for the township. That is great and responsible redevelopment, and that is what we're doing across the town. If there's areas to add more redevelopment or add, as my opponent has said, continue more redevelopment, that's what we're looking to do so that we can help offset the fees for a high school.
Thank you.
If we may respond to that.
Yes,
Yes,
please.
cool. So while we're talking about maybe that won't happen, the reality is that a new school is coming. It's not something we're going to talk about in an election year, but let's look at the facts. Churchill has just put trailers in. Once you put those those temporary solutions, you need a permanent fixture. So Churchill needs to be upgraded. You're going to need to fix the high school. The reality is the new developments that they're looking to put on Route 18 are going to bring in more people, whether we agree with that or not. And we talk about the ratables of how we cannot cost the residents. Well, prime suspect would be to not put out 30-year pilot programs that give almost half the money that should be going to the school district. So while the school board may be able to raise some money for the high school, it's not just the high school we have to worry about. Churchill needs renovations. There's elementary schools that are outdated. And while that is a Board of Ed question, it's eventually going to trickle down onto the taxpayers, whether we like it or not, if we don't do something to bring in more tax ratable.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Any additional comment?
I'd just like to say the school board will always get their money. We are the collecting authority. They set their budget, they always get their money. It's not that the school board, through a redevelopment project, is being cheated out of money. They set their budget, they get their money. The township collects it and sends them a check every month.
And a referendum will be a hard sell.
Okay. Now for our second question, Democrats will have the first response.
Mayor Cohen has talked about developing Route 18 as an entertainment corridor by citing the planned hockey rink, Rock and Air, other entertainment venues between here and Old Bridge. He also talked about a medical corridor on Riders Lane and Route 18. What other types of businesses do you think should come to East Brunswick that, as a resident of the community, you know that people would want and like to have here that aren't dream businesses, that are realistic businesses to come to East Brunswick? And how can a council member work to make those businesses come to East Brunswick and find East Brunswick attractive?
Is that ours?
That's
You are first, correct.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Earlier, I mentioned in my resume that I was the vice president of the East Brunswick Arts Coalition. The Arts Coalition is a fundraising bulwark for what we used to call the five families affectionately. It was the Human Relations Council, it was Playhouse 22, the Historical Society, the Museum Corp, and the Arts Commission. And these people, these unpaid volunteers who work in these groups, have put out untold amounts of programming, fantastic programming, especially in the last couple of years. They work very hard. Arts and culture, to me, and to many that I speak with, is an attractive for tourism. It attracts people to your town. We have, I live in the farm section of East Brunswick. There are beautiful countryside farms over there that are not being utilized. They need permits so they can put up little cafes. They need permits so they can open up a microbrewery. They can host live music events there. There are things we can do with our existing resources to make us more attractive, and not just on Route 18, but all over. I'd like to see part of the redevelopment, part of the workforce housing that's put in, be parceled out to artists and musicians as an incubator, because if they live and work here, the vibe grows organically, and East Brunswick becomes a place to be, or a place you want to be, because it's just here. Things are here and they're happening here. We have no live music venue in East Brunswick right now, save for the municipal building again, it's very difficult practically to attract certain businesses to the town, but I would work very, very hard just to get this rolling, get more funding and more support for these offshoot organizations, and expand them, create more of them, so that we have people working all over in our community to bring arts and culture, so that we encourage more people to come, so the people who are staying in the Park Chateau want to stay the next day and visit and spend their money here.
Thank you very much. Response.
Yes. So as someone who has walked and talked to over probably 10,000 residents in East Brunswick, I can agree with what they're saying is that the reality is people want to see more here in East Brunswick. The number one thing people want to see here in East Brunswick is restaurants, right? I work a late job. I don't get out of work sometimes till 10, 10:30. And the reality is there's one place or two places for me to go when I come back into town, and that's either Bar Louie or Aruga's. And while they're great places, how often are you going to go eat there? We want to see more high-quality places, more mom-and-pop shops. As a restaurant owner, as somebody who has done it, I can tell you that that's what people are looking to see. People want to see quality. East Brunswick and Route 18 is full of, while they're great, chain restaurants and places that you see everywhere, like Chipotle's, Bonefish Grills, like those things, while they're great, they're not what would make you want to come to East Brunswick. Majority of people, when they go out to eat or shop, they're not here in East Brunswick. We do need to bring something in here. And, you know, with all due respect, the Mayor Cohen has been talking about this since 2016 when he ran against Jimmy on the Republican ticket, and nothing has happened. And they've had control of the council for those 6 years. They've had abandoned buildings for 6 years. We've seen, while new businesses are opening, businesses are closing. We've lost the Seville Diner. We've lost Sunny Palace. We've seen these places close down. And the reality is, you want to make East Brunswick more attractive, then the East Brunswick Council needs to figure out a way to make it more incentivizing. I remember the mayor had a Shop Local East Brunswick program. I know you saw it because I read the article Tap wrote about it. What happened to that? How can we incentivize people to shop here in East Brunswick? Also, I tried to open my restaurant in South Plainfield where the Twisted Crab was going to be. And the reality was that they were charging so much per square foot that it was almost unfathomable for me to try to open a business here. And I'm glad that we didn't, not because I don't want to be in East Brunswick, but now look at the inflation of goods. For me to pay the amount per square foot I would have had to pay to be in East Brunswick, we wouldn't have made it. So we need to figure out a way that we can incentivize local mom and pop people like myself who can take out an SBA, open a place that will attract residents here. Right? We have almost 50,000 residents here that are screaming for restaurants, that are screaming for activity. I will agree with nightlife and things like that, and I see the time, but you want to bring in all the new developments that are going to bring in younger people. The way to keep them here and the way to spend money is you got to have restaurants, you got to have shopping, you got to have entertainment for them. That's the way to do it.
Thank you very much.
If I may.
Response?
Yes, please. You know, Mr. Herrera, you talk about the rents and everything else on Route 18. You know, high rents are honestly a testament to what we have, and only the chain restaurants can afford those, as well as the cost of our liquor licenses. The liquor licenses that are available in East Brunswick are usually north of $400,000. As such, I mean, yes, we do bring in a lot of chain restaurants, but we have a lot of great restaurants. Blue Water Cafe, you know, there's a lot of great small mom and pop places. Yeah, the Seville Diner, I was sad to see it go, but you know what, that was a product of COVID. Don't make it a product of the mayor. The mayor has, and this administration has been opening more than 100 new businesses every year since he's been mayor. So it's not that people aren't coming here. There's new businesses coming here every single day.
And on the plans that have been submitted for the Whiz Gap, within those plans, 4 restaurants.
Thank you very much. Response?
I have a response. So
Please.
if we have over 100 new businesses that are coming into town, how come we're still paying an 80-20 split of the taxables for the township? 80% going to the residents, 20% going to the businesses.
I have no idea what that means.
Right.
It's an 80-10-20 split, right? 80% of the tax burden falls to the resident, 20% falls to the businesses. Some towns like South Brunswick have a 60-40 split where 40% of the tax rateable gets picked up by the businesses. So if East Brunswick has so many businesses that are opening, how come we can't look into how we could possibly do that? And again, I didn't blame the Seville closing on the mayor. I understand COVID did happen. All I was saying is that was a staple of the community that nobody can replace, right? Those are big shoes to fill. And there are plenty of mom and pop places that are here. But what I'm saying is, because I've actually been out there talking to people, that's what they want to see. They want to see more of that, because the reality is East Brunswick, up until a few years ago, was one of the older demographic towns in Middlesex County. We are attracting younger people, but the reality is this is a town that closes at 9 p.m. and there's nothing to be done. So we need to figure out a way to add some youth to the town.
Thank you very much. Okay. We will now go on to our next question. This is directed at the Democrats first.
The population of East Brunswick is likely to increase as a result of the new developments in the redevelopment zone at 110 Tice's Lane, at the intersection of Old Stage Road, and at Hidden Lakes on Tice's Lane. Dr. Valesky has hired a demographer to chart the possible increase in population as it affects the schools. On the other hand, how can our infrastructure of roads handle this development in the increase of traffic? Yesterday, I posted the plan for the complete revamping of Route 18 in both directions for a 5-year plan on beginning last week. As a member of the Town Council, how do you think we should address concerns about traffic, development, and construction all happening at the same time?
That's us?
Yes.
Democrats
Start it off,
Yeah,
Jim?
I'll take that one.
Go
Well,
with the traffic,
I mean,
and I'll do the schools.
You know, honestly, as chairman of the redevelopment agency, we have been addressing this. You're going to see Tice's Lane be widened from Hart's Lane to Route 18, all on the back of the developer, not a cost to the taxpayer, 1 cent. We're also going to put in a new loop road that's going to connect Renee Road to Route 18. Redevelopment is going to help the traffic on Route 18 flow. You're getting rid of, between Ruth Street and
Tice's.
Lake Avenue, there are about 25 curb cuts. There are going to be 4 now. So, you know, when you're driving down in that right lane and somebody's always hitting their brakes to pull off and go into a parking lot, you're not going to have that any longer. It's going to be a better flow. You know, most of this housing is going to be met with transportation. 110 Tices is going to have a shuttle to the transportation center, expecting most of those people to be commuters. Yeah. There's also going to be workforce housing in all of these developments, which is required, a requirement put on us by the state. And all that workforce housing is going to be your teachers, your policemen, all the starting out people who want to come to East Brunswick, recently graduated college, and have a job making $45,000 or $50,000 a year. Well, now they're going to be able to go into that workforce housing and stay in East Brunswick or grow their family in East Brunswick.
Do I go? Okay, thank you. So I've been in the Tice's Lane area meeting with residents before I was even considered to be a town council candidate. I was very concerned about there because my friends live there. They would tell me what's going on there. And the people there cannot hear themselves think with the windows open. The amount of traffic that they're experiencing now before the developments are even done is insane. Now, my question is, if the town doesn't have the resources to enforce speed limits and limits of the overweight trucks that are going around, how do they, and they can't maintain the existing infrastructure, how are they going to plan on doing this once those buildings are open? The other thing is, while those roads are going to be expanded, you can't expand 18. 18 is what it is. So whatever happens on 18 is going to spill out. No, it's not true? Okay, so anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's going to be detours. And if you look at the water main break that was going on by the Sunburst area, by Sunburst Drive, that detour ended, and the detour never ended as far as those trucks are going, because those people are living in a nightmare. There's 18-wheelers, there's huge axles driving down residential streets and speeding through. So while you think that this is going to be a short-term solution for a long-term response, it's not going to work, because those people there already live through traffic and nightmares. So we have to really consider those people before we start saying, oh, it's going to be an amazing thing once it's done. Those people have to live through it. Quality of life for those residents with the taxes that they're paying are going down. And you're going to lose a lot of residents in that area. I've heard from them personally. I'm telling you, they're not happy about what's going on there. And the fact that they're going to have 2 developments there at the same time going up, plus 18 is going to have that exit 9 being corrected. Those people there are not happy that their feelings and their quality of life is not being considered in any of the things that are going on here. So I suggest that the other team goes and meets with those residents and see how they feel, because if you don't live over there, it's not going to affect you. So you're like, yeah, okay, once the traffic's done, once the developments are open, we're going to have an exciting time there. But the people who live there are not going to have an exciting time while living through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Response.
I'll bring you back to the question, and that was overcrowding in schools.
That was part of the question.
That's how you started it off, and that's where my level of expertise on this team exists. Because the school district has a maximum number of in and around 9,500 people, 9,500 students. Right now, there's about 7,800 students, so there's still plenty of room for the children in the schools. Then you can take the elementary schools. They just took the entire 4th grade out of the 7 elementary schools and brought them up to Hammershoal because they had plenty of room for the kids there. The bottom line is that with regard to any new additions, whether it's 110 Tice's or the bottom of Summerhill Road, the magic number is to take 3 bedrooms and equals 1 child. That's the rule of thumb when I was on the Board of Education, when we were concerned or worried about the Kensington apartment complex and what kind of effect that would have on the Chittick School or the Bound Monroe School, the 2 that we were going to send the kids to. Bottom line is that right now, with regard to those numbers, it's not going to have an effect in a negative capacity on our schools. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you very much. Response.
So, last question, we weren't talking about the schools because that was a Board of Ed thing, and then we just spent a minute talking about the schools. But if the schools aren't crowded, why are kids in trailers, number one? My issue is I work in South Plainfield, and I drive down Route 18 every day. I know nobody over there does. Kevin McEvoy's retired. Jimmy works in Colorado, and Dana said she's a stay-at-home mom that has a business from home. So they're not riding on Route 18 like I am. It takes me 1 hour and 30 minutes to come home from South Plainfield. That's 8 miles, right? As soon as I get off Metlers, I'm sitting by the Rutgers Stadium. You know it. I know it. Now, let's not be unrealistic. We're going to build a 24-hour trucking center on Harts Lane, right? You're going to re-expand Tice's, where you have an apartment complex there. You're going to have apartment buildings on Route 18. You can't expand Route 18 because he didn't mention that. You can maybe a little bit, a shoulder, but you're going to have traffic that is unmanageable. And he just said there's a busing district that's going to come in to move people in and out. So we have 18-wheelers. We have probably 2,000 to 3,000 more cars in the first phase of redevelopment, plus buses. Like, we can talk about how shiny it is, and it's beautiful, and I do believe Route 18 needs to be redeveloped. But this is going to be a traffic nightmare. And again, like Antoinette said, and I'll close it with this, did anybody over there actually walk District 5 or District 22? Because I know them because we walked them. Did you talk to those people and ask them, how are you going to feel when I build apartment buildings on both sides of you?
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Burzak, we have the next question. Republicans will have the first response.
When citizens come to a township council meeting, they hope to be heard. This year, people have come to council meetings and expressed concerns about everything from hockey teams to poor road conditions, to abandoned houses and untended properties, to the expansion of religious centers that encroach on residential neighborhoods, to the level of fluoride and possible contaminants in our water. How can you respond to a citizen concern presented during a town council meeting? What should you do, and what should you not do?
All right. What did you just say? People come to the township council meeting and hope to be heard. I've stood right in that space for the last 18 months and spoken at many meetings. And in fact, I kind of gave up because the reality is when you come up here and you speak to the current council that sits up here, you're not heard. You're not respected. You're not received well. You're told it's not a back and forth. You're told your concerns will be answered. You're told by the business administrator that you clearly don't understand how the government works. And, you know, I'm good at public speaking. So is the rest of my team. A lot of people aren't. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage to come in here and stand up and talk about your issues. And when you're spoken to that way, some people realize maybe it's not worth me talking about these problems. That's why when those issues you just addressed, like the blighted houses on Quaker or Sunburst Drive, people came here, felt unheard, and then reached out to candidates that aren't even elected to say, what can you do to help us, right? 20-something years, Quaker Lane, those houses were abandoned. They came here with poster boards, and they were told by the council president, everyone will be here this week. We showed up 5 days later, and we said, has anybody been here? They said, no. We said, cool, we'll shoot a video for you. And we shot a video within 3 days that had 7,000 views on it. And you know, after 2 days of that video being up, the health department was there, the poison ivy was cut, people were showing up, the animal control had rolled up there. So the reality is yes, people do come to the council meeting to be heard. But when I started coming here 18 months ago, if it wasn't for me and the campaign manager I was with, nobody was sitting in this room. And I didn't understand why until I started coming for the last year and a half and realized that they sit up here, they pretend they want to hear what you have to say and that they're going to help you, but you get told, we'll look into it, or that's a Board of Ed issue, or you need to contact this person. And every single person we've spoken to, Democrat, Independent, and Republican, that's reached out to candidates has told us, the people on Sunburst, sent out a petition in 2017 with 150 signatures that the mayor has ignored, that the council has ignored. So people want to be heard, but the reality is they're not feeling heard, which is, again, why they're not coming anymore. And the only way that this township can work the best way possible is when the elected officials remember they work for the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to respond to that.
Yep.
Being the current council president and sitting here with my current council vice president, I can tell you straight up, we listen to everybody's concerns. They'll try to make it their issue that they made something happen. The people on Quaker and Lantern were responded to the next day. I was on site the next day, and summonses were written the day after the council meeting. Mosquito control and everybody else was contacted the day after the council meeting. These people will try to tell you and let you think that they got something done. But no, government takes time. Summonses were written, residents were brought into court, and they came in, and then the responses occurred at the property. Now, as far as sunburst goes, I got a study here done by our traffic safety. From January 2018, the average speed on sunburst for 7,399 vehicles over a course of 4 days was 25.48 miles per hour. March 2022, between the dates of March 3rd and March 18th, 24,132 cars drove that road. The average speed was 26.63. June 2022, 23,951 cars. The average speed, 25.94, with only 3.27% of those cars above 35 miles an hour. So, yes, they're responding to social media. We send our people out there. We've done directed patrols. We've ticketed overweight vehicles. And it happens. Just because there's a resident out there that's still, squawking, or they feel that they have an issue to speak about, it's here on paper. These are the facts. People aren't speeding on sunburst the way some residents are complaining.
Thank you very much. Response?
So what the president of the council is telling you is that you're lying. He's saying that you're not telling the truth. So the dozens and dozens and dozens of video footage that I have been sent from their Ring cameras they're lies. Those are not true. The 18-wheelers going up down one-way streets on residential blocks, those are lies too. So what we're doing here is we're basically saying that the people who are expressing their concerns with video footage are lying. And I only put out a video with 2 of the clips, because if I put a video, what are we doing here? We're not traffic control. They sent them to me to prove what they're saying. What I want everyone to understand is that when your voice is used, that's when things change. The councilman is saying that he came and the next day, I can show you the text messages of those homeowners who have never seen him yet. I've even heard some of the councilmen tell me it wasn't even important. Poison ivy sounds like a health problem issue, not a town council issue. So these problems that you guys went to the council getting addressed were addressed, and you probably got them fixed because you went to court, and it wasn't because of the council.
Thank you. Anything further?
I'm going to chime in here. I was just at Sunburst, and I walked the whole neighborhood. Not one neighbor, and I asked them, how are you doing with these trucks? Not one person, not one brought up the trucks or said it was an issue. Not one. And I probed because I wanted to be helpful, and I wanted to talk with them about it and see what I could do to help them as well. And they did not. They said, it's fine. We love it here. It's fine.
Can I rebuttal on her?
With dozens and dozens of Ring doorbell video, Antoinette, why wouldn't you share that with town council so that they can
They've
take
sent them
action
to the
to
council.
help?
They've sent them to
Ladies,
whom?
gentlemen,
Because nobody does anything.
You're not on the
so-
council, so they
Gentlemen.
wouldn't send it to
No,
you.
you don't
Ladies
give up.
and
You don't give up. You
gentlemen,
work a system.
we have
have a system, and it's been working so far.
one response per person, per group. That is it. Sorry, but I'm going to be the dictator here.
It's okay.
But one response per group. Thank you very much. We will now move on to the next question. Ms. Burzak, Democrats will have the first response.
As a member of the town council that may be comprised of members of both parties, How would you work to achieve consensus so that the township can move forward for the benefit of the community? Is it important to achieve consensus?
The function of the government at the local level, it doesn't matter if you have a D or an R on your back with regard to the time that you spend sitting up here on the dais. On Fridays, I receive my agenda, and I begin to go over it at the breakfast table with my wife. And then the consent agenda questions that I have, Mr. Baker knows that I usually call around 11 o'clock in the morning. It's become a standardized little joke that I call him at 11 to answer maybe 2 or 3 questions I have about the consent. Then I'll make a phone call to Mr. Crisculo. It's a courtesy call because I might have to reach out to the Department of Construction, or maybe I'll need some answers from Parks and Rec. And it's a courtesy, as I said, to make sure that the mayor knows that I'm going to be talking to his people. Finally, what I do is I'll make a phone call to councilmen and councilwomen, future councilwomen, about, again, the topic. And again, the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that doesn't matter if you're the D or the R. Because when I'm up here as a councilman, I'm not up here as Kevin McEvoy, the Democratic councilman who's talking to the Democratic voters in the community. I'm the councilman who's speaking to everyone in the community. So when the time comes, if I were to lose this seat to my fellow candidates across the aisle over here, they're going to be doing the same thing that I'm doing right now, working to the best of our ability to go through the resolutions and the ordinances and doing the homework that is required to ensure that East Brunswick maintains the status that it has and the status that it is. Thank you, Maureen.
Thank you. Response.
Maureen, can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. As a member of the town council that may be comprised of members of both parties, as it currently is not, right? How would you work to achieve consensus so that the township can move forward for the benefit of the community? And is it important to achieve consensus?
Okay, so I didn't kind of quite understand what Mr. McEvoy was saying over there. He was giving his way of doing it, but according to the question you're asking consensus, first thing I would do is I would read the question or the ordinance or whatever that was coming onto our plate, and then I would kind of try to understand it, and then I would reach out to across the aisle. Instead of calling Mr. Baker, who's the lawyer, I would reach out to, let's say, Mr. Wendell or Ms. Winston, whoever is on the other side. I would reach out to them and say, hey, this is something that's presented for the town. What actually is, how is it going to benefit the town? You know, what's your guys' thoughts on it? You know, I'm not an obstructionist. I'm not going to just filibuster. I want to understand what the other side is thinking, and I also want to be sure whatever decision is for the best of the town. And that's how I would reach across the aisle and make sure that the consensus was taken.
Any response?
No, I don't think so.
I will.
Okay.
I do think that sometimes, not always, but consensus is important sometimes, and sometimes when you're making decisions as a group to move forward, sometimes compromise is key, and by that I mean sometimes you have to let it go for another time. You can dig your heels in really, really hard on something, but eventually you need to move forward, and to not make a decision is stagnation and languishing, and that's no good either. So I think that's important to think about, that you need people in there who are willing to let it go, and it's not about your ego, it's not about you getting your way, it's always about the people and who these decisions are affecting, and also camaraderie amongst the people that you work with, and a mutual respect.
So, you know, I think it's funny, I'm sitting in Kevin's chair, and he's a history teacher, and I was a big history person, but history would say that, you know, when the people win is when neither side agrees. And that means that the people got the best deal. Because the reality is for the last 6 years, this township has been one-sided. And there hasn't been that person that really raises the hand. Sometimes, yes, but the reality is There's too much of a majority to ever really stand up against what you may disagree with. I mean, I've seen Councilman McEvoy raise his hand a bunch of times and say, hey, I don't agree with this. Ultimately ended up, it ends up passing because there isn't a majority. But prime example, the hockey rink. That was put on the agenda to be voted on for $600,000. People came up here, we talked about the price tag. Kevin raised his hand, said, I don't like it. And you know what? It ended up going back into the books, and would you know, a month later, it was only $140,000 less for those architectural renderings because of the fact that there was somebody to raise the hand and say, we can't do this. That's exactly why there should be two sides. That's exactly why I believe the council should be a nonpartisan position. So it's about people, not politics.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next question, this is to the Republicans first.
It's kind of a creative question.
Oh.
If you could accomplish one thing here in East Brunswick during your time on the council, what would that be? What would be your focal point that, say, this is what I wanted to accomplish, and we got that done?
You guys figure it out.
I'll take it, unless you want to take it.
I mean, we can, go ahead, I'll do this.
You get the rebuttal?
Yeah.
If I could do one thing for East Brunswick, I know last year, we got caught on the nostalgia question, right, of how East Brunswick must move forward. But this is a town that means something to me, very special to me. And I would love to be able to leave East Brunswick in a better place than I found it, just like I think most people should take on the world, right? My goal in life, not just East Brunswick, my goal in life is to leave the world a better place than I found it. Some people might not agree with that coming from me, but that's the reality. I would love to see future generations of East Brunswick flourish here. I remember when we moved here, even a few years ago, this was a town that people said, you know what, I will retire here, I will spend my life here, like this is it for me. But as of late, there's a lot of people who say, I can't wait for my kids to graduate high school so we can get out of here and stop paying the exorbitant taxes we are. I don't want to live in an inner city. I don't want to live off Route 18. So obviously I understand progress must happen. But my goal, no matter who ends up taking these seats this year, right, whether it's none of us or all of us, we will still be a part of this community because this is a community that means something to all of us. That's why I'm doing it a second year in a row, and that's why they're doing it in the first place. But this is a community that is moving in a new direction. It does need new ideas. It needs people who are a little more pragmatic, who look at it. And, some people would call that, I'm, saying that we're negative about things. But the reality is you never can find a solution until you can identify a problem. There are problems in East Brunswick. It's a great town. It's better than majority of the towns in East Brunswick. I'm sorry if you're not in East Brunswick and you're watching this. But we have an opportunity right now that because East Brunswick is transitioning in such a way that we won't be able to recognize what Route 18 looks like in a few years, right? We look at the architectural renderings. It's going to be massive. We have an ability to put a generational impact on East Brunswick. I'd love to be a part of that because I believe for the younger generation that wants to be brought into East Brunswick with these developments, there should be a younger, new set of eyes, new perspective on this that knows what the youth wants, that knows what new families want. And so if I could do that, it would be to pass East Brunswick on to the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Response?
Yes. Listen, I'd like to tell you, having lived in East Brunswick since 1970, I've seen many, many changes. I remember when the Loman's Plaza was a thriving shopping center. I remember when the Wiz opened up and Crazy Eddie was on Route 18 and Two Guys was on Route 18. This has all changed. Everything evolves. What I'm proud of and what I want to continue to see happen is people to be able to age in place in East Brunswick. And that's going to happen with all this redevelopment. Allowing new things to happen and new revenue to be generated is going to allow us to continue to fund the programs that we fund, such as the senior center and all of that. I empathize. My mother still lives, as you know, Maureen, a couple of doors away from you. My mother, widowed, lives on Riva Avenue by herself and struggles to be in town on a fixed income. There are programs out there. There's the Anchor program. There's the Senior Freeze. There's all of these things that have been put in place that can help the seniors. I am proud of everything that we've done. We've opened 2 new parks in the past year. Those are accomplishments that make me walk away and remember, I used to play in that area. Now it's a park and it's open to everyone. These are the things and the accomplishments that I want to continue to bring to East Brunswick through my next 4 years. You know, whether it's 4 years, 8 years, no more years, I don't care, I'm still going to be involved. But honestly, the accomplishments have been so much with very minimal tax increases. This past year, $16 tax increase for the average homeowner in East Brunswick. Last year, $10 tax increase for the average homeowner in East Brunswick. Municipal tax. And, you know, realize you're $2,200, the average home in East Brunswick pays $2,200 a year in municipal tax. And think about the services you get: police, fire, parks and rec. It's a great value. It's a great town. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Response.
So, the question that you asked was, what would we want to accomplish, right?
Yeah, a focal.
So, I had the opportunity to kind of go back to the past debates the last couple of days and understand, you know, what both sides were kind of speaking of. And in my opening statements, I said that, you know, half-truths seem to be the kind of the general statements here. What happened to the community center? Last year's candidates literally looked into the mic and he said, I am going to create a community center. A community center brings the entire town together. We have great baseball fields. We have great soccer fields. We don't have an indoor swimming pool. We don't have a place for the youth council. We don't have a place for a lot of our youth and seniors to enter and commingle. There was another quote in a previous debate that redevelopment is a #1 priority, but redevelopment for the small few, not for the entire town, I don't think that's fair.
Thank you. Response?
I'd like to respond to that. Technically, a building that is a community center does not exist right now, but I will speak to two things that you brought up, Neal, that are two entities that are absolutely thriving in town, so much so that they both received accolades from the state for being the busiest and the best, one of the best. One of them is our library. All right. Our library has changed over the years so drastically. I remember it was a tiny place in the basement of this building. And then it grew over the years. We have people from all over the state coming to use our facilities here. We have passports there, makers programs. They had a debate club team. We probably all could have used a little bit of that earlier at 5:30. But it's a massive, great place, and it's not about books anymore. It's about meeting rooms. It's about people. It's about programming. It's about educating the public. Senior Center. I work there. I'm there. I don't work there and make money. I volunteer there. It has changed, going there has changed my absolute outlook on retirement. I always thought, I'm going to move away. When I get older, I don't want to move away anymore. If you spend some time at our senior center, I encourage you all to try it and do it. It is amazing what they do, and the people who work there are fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Can I respond just real quick on the library part?
Unfortunately, we don't have time for that. That would be an extra response beyond the parameters.
It's not a negative response, just more of a question, because...
Again, I'm sorry. I guess if you want to bring that up in your closing statement, I'm sure that would be appropriate.
Okay.
But given the parameters that have been set out and agreed
That's fine.
to.
Maureen, you got a good one in there?
This is the last question.
No pressure.
Come on, Maureen. Bring the heat.
Well, this is a question that's of some concern. The redevelopment zone, the repairs on roads, the concentration of population on Tice's Lane, and the new developments there bring a lot of the population of East Brunswick north. There was a proposal that never really went anywhere to have a branch of the library on the north end of town, and to have a police department substation on the north end of town, as statistics show that a good deal of crime occurs near the turnpike, near Walmart, near the northern end of Old Bridge Turnpike. And East Brunswick seems to be coming out of balance. And you talked about balance before, with a great deal of people within the next decade living at one end of town in apartments, and communal residences, and people like me living at the other end of town, where all the facilities, like our excellent police department, our excellent library, our excellent 3 of our 5 fire buildings, are located. What part of planning includes those public services to the north end of town?
Okay, this is a Democrat first response, and then the Republicans
Okay.
follow.
Well, I mean, Maureen, great question. And, you know, we did originally think about moving the entire municipal complex to that end of town when we were talking redevelopment. The residents spoke. They didn't want to move the municipal complex or the library to that end of town. So we responded and made changes. There is still a very good opening to be putting an annex to the library within the redevelopment zone, within one of the retail spaces, maybe at 110 Tisus. There's always been talk about having a police presence in the new redevelopment zone, and that is considering along Edgeboro Road at this point. Again, it'll be done as a needed issue, but, you know, you have to understand, I mean, you know, we are transforming East Brunswick right now. But doing nothing is not the answer. It's taken us a long time to get here. Many, many roads needed to be crossed. Many, many hurdles needed to be passed. And I'm proud to say that we just passed the Route 18 redevelopment plan at a planning board meeting last Wednesday night, unanimously. Two of our opponents over here got up and spoke on the record. They said that they loved it. They actually, I mean, that was, Antoinette said it was beautiful. Neal Shah said it was beautiful on the record at the planning board meeting. So, I mean, this is a supported program from both sides. And we're excited to see it. We're going to have high-end retail. We're going to have nice residential. There's going to be a hotel. There's going to be restaurants. There's going to be a pad site. There's even medical office buildings. So that area is going to transform dramatically with the widening of Route 18 and all of that. This is going to become a much better area for the town. It's going to turn around tremendous amount of ratables and revenues for the town. So I'm excited, I'm very happy, and I'm happy to have support from Mr. Shah and Ms. Evola on it at the planning board meeting last week.
Thank you very much. Response.
Back to the original question. I absolutely love the library. We frequent it often. I have 2 small children. But let's talk about the police department. We have 500 residents per officer. If we're bringing in all these residents to the northbound of East Brunswick, you better be sure that you're going to need more police officers. Because I've walked District 5, and a majority of those people lock their screen doors. Now, everybody here is probably going to be like, what does that mean? Because I know a lot of doors in East Brunswick don't lock their screen doors. Those doors are locked. And a lot of those residents there are saying that the reason why that they're getting so much crime in that area is because they're right off the turnpike. So it's an easy hit. If you're, I mean, not to invite the criminals, but if you're a criminal, that's the area you're going to target. So there needs to be more police presence there, and there isn't right now because we don't have enough officers. Our officers are doing an amazing job protecting this town, but they are outnumbered when it comes to residents. So when you're increasing the residents in this town, you need to increase the police presence. As far as the library goes, I would hope that they would probably try to focus things on the southbound. I feel like the southbound of 18 gets neglected. As far as the redevelopment plan, I have eyeballs. The luxury apartments are amazing. I mean, who wouldn't want a yoga facility and a fitness center with an underground pool? And it's gorgeous. I worked in high-end luxury. I had $1 million book. I understand what people want. But on that planning board, one of the members suggested, can we add a drive-up window to one of the restaurants? So they're out of touch with what the residents who are going to live in those apartments are going to want. They don't want more Chipotle's, because that was a decision that was one of his suggestions. They don't want more Chipotle's. They want fine dining. We want something like B2 Bistro. Not too expensive, but something that gives you that ambiance, that you go outdoors, you can sit near the water, you can enjoy a cocktail, you can have sushi, you can have pasta. If we're going to focus on that side of 18, we need to bring more police presence there, for sure, because it's needed.
Response.
Let us not forget that for the past 7 years, MyCentralJersey.com has rated the East Brunswick Police Department the #1 department in Middlesex County. And let us not forget that the New Jersey Chiefs of Police has accredited our department of the 83 men and women who police our community. Therefore, as you know, our police force responds quickly to residents' needs, and they are proactive within the community, and they utilize all resources available to upgrade the department. Our police chief, Frank Lasaka, #1, and his staff are highly recognized and respected, and we should all be proud and stand tall with our men and women in blue. Thank you, Maureen.
Any response?
I'm muted. No, I'm not. I would just like to say that we do have one of the greatest police forces in all of New Jersey, but we can't sit here and say that 590 residents for every one police officer and a growing population is something that we can ignore, right? You're totally right. Route 18 North is going to be overpopulated with a lot of different things, which is part of why I believe while that redevelopment is taking place, there are areas of East Brunswick that do need to see some TLC. We have to be a little bit more cognizant about the other things that are going on in town. But I think moving forward, right, and the planning board meeting, like I wasn't there, I had to work, but the reality is the planning board meeting was put out a day before it was done. One of the biggest redevelopments we've ever seen in East Brunswick, and the residents got posted on TAP. No offense, Maureen, but not everyone reads the TAP. You know, it got posted on the township page.
I did not attend,
Township
David, and
page.
did not write about that.
Right, the township page, how many people are reading the township page a day before for the biggest redevelopment we've ever seen? So transparency on what's happening, more proper planning needs to go into it to let people know what's happening. And then we also need to, this is cart before the horse, right? We're building and then hoping we have the infrastructure to hold it together.
I need to respond to that just real
No,
quickly.
I'm
You don't get
sorry,
it.
you
Okay.
can't. You can.
Back and forth.
In your
Okay.
ending statement. Okay, which is where we are going right now. We will conclude this forum this evening with 2-minute closing statements from each of the candidates. The order will be in the reverse from our opening statements. So therefore, the first speaker is Antoinette Evola.
Thank you. I first want to say thank you to the East Brunswick residents. The last 7 months have been amazing. Getting to meet you, your families, hear your stories, how you came from, majority of you came from Brooklyn like me. It's been an amazing experience for me. I'm going to speak directly to the residents for my closing. I want to thank everybody, obviously, for tonight, but I want to speak to them. When you go to vote on November 8th, whether you're going to do it in person, old school, or you're going to do it by mail-in ballot, or you're going to do it a week before with early voting, I want you to take into consideration who you're voting for and why. Our opponents have been fully funded by developers, engineers, and political organizations. The 4 of us, we get $20 for T-shirts and $40 tickets for Bar Louie's. We are the literal definition of grassroots movement. We walked. I didn't go on vacation this year. I wasn't in the Caribbean. I was walking doors with my children on most days when it was 100 degrees. I've lost 18 pounds walking. Holla. But the reality is I did it because I wanted to hear from you. What my views on East Brunswick are don't matter. Because when I'm sitting here, I'm not voting on what I like and what I don't like. And I have worked across the aisle with other political organizations. I was at a state level at the beginning. So I am very comfortable being able to extend my olive branch to the other side to meet at the middle, because at the end of the day, my decision, our decision, is what you want. I trust you and I believe you when you tell me that something is going on. So if you want someone who's going to represent your voice and your choice, I suggest you vote for the East Brunswick team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second speaker, our next speaker, I should say, is Neal Shah.
So I'm going to keep this very brief. I just wanted to use my ending statement to respond to Ms. Winston's library comment, which is kind of really close and near to my heart. When I was growing up, we had a community center that was thriving. And the library, even though it's a great place, it requires insurance if you want to use the back room. You can barely get a room to hang out with your friends. Community center, and that's what the library's for. Don't get me wrong. The library's there for your education. It's meeting place. I see a lot of kids getting tutored there. Great place. However, a community center brings children to a space where there's laughter and there's running around and there's just community being. I've been a coach in this town for 14 years. If I took if I took a poll of those kids from day one to day now, they would tell me that the library is the last place they want to go to. They don't want to go there and be quiet. They want to go to a place where they can go swimming, that they can play arcade games. I think I just dated myself when I said arcade games. But they want to play pool. They want to play ping pong. And parents should have a safe place to drop them off. So the community center is near and dear to my heart. When they brought it up, I got excited, and I was like, wow, East Brunswick's really moving forward. Got disappointed that a 300-unit apartment's coming up on Route 18, which is going to have basically a community center for only those residents. I've seen the videos from Russo Development. It's awesome. You're right, Mr. Wendell. It is amazing. Pool tables, swimming pool. But for 300 people, that's not fair. And they're not even paying taxes according to the pilot program. So again, Democrats have great ideas. I do support them a lot of times, but they never bring it to fruition.
Thank you very much. Our next final statement is by Dave Herrera. Sorry.
East Brunswick, this upcoming November 8th, you have a decision to make. As you've heard from all of us, East Brunswick is moving in a direction, and it's happening whether we want it to or not. But we have to make a decision in which way we're going to go when we get to the fork in the road. I've had the privilege and honor of being able to walk this community for the last 18 months. Not all the time was it fun, but I enjoyed every person that I got to meet because I had a motto of knocking every door. I didn't care whether they were Democrat, Independent, or Republican. I knocked on their door. Last year, I even knocked on doors that had my opponent's sign just to talk to them and tell them, I know you're not going to vote for me, but this is what I'm about and what I would love to help do. And the biggest question that we've asked all year, and we've asked last year, and this year too, was what do you want to see in your community? Because that's not a question that I believe gets asked by the current administration. They want to talk about they're transparent. They want to talk about that they're for you. Last year, Dinesh said he was going to be the voice of the people. I don't remember what his voice sounds like because I haven't heard him speak since he won. You know, they want to say that they're going to be the people for you. When the opportunity arose, council president switched parties because that was what was going to be beneficial for his political career. We want to talk about, I love Kevin McEvoy. He was my teacher, but they put him at the top because he's Kevin McEvoy, everybody's favorite teacher, and it's nostalgic, right, Maureen? Nostalgic to think of Kevin McEvoy, the voice of the Bears. But it's riddled underneath with things that don't make sense, like a council candidate who was put in that runs the teachers union when the schools are going to be coming in, like a council president who's on the redevelopment agency and sits on the planning board, and the biggest development in East Brunswick was just brought in by someone who's his former employer. You have to ask these questions, and he can rebuttal all he wants. It's on his LinkedIn page. This upcoming November, it's time to start voting for people that don't have friends that work in the community, that don't have people that are sitting on boards. We're regular residents that stood up and got beaten down a lot of the times because we were sick and tired, just like you were, of the monotonous, tangled web of government. And it isn't just East Brunswick, but unfortunately, this is where we live, and we have the backbone to stand up for you. So when you go out in November, I don't care whether you're a Democrat, an Independent, or a Republican, we're asking for you to vote for the East Brunswick First Team. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next closing statement is by Kevin McEvoy.
Thank you for listening to our forum and to our hosts and to EBTV for the broadcast. As you have heard, my record of service to our township is wide and deep. I began my career in East Brunswick as a teacher and coach with the record of scholastic championships and inductions into halls of fame. Soon thereafter, I served you as a member of the Board of Education and had the distinct honor of holding the office as your mayor. Being elected to the Township Council in 2018 was among my professional and personal highlights, as it has afforded me the opportunity to make a real difference in your day-to-day quality of life. I carefully investigate the resolutions and ordinances that come before me for my vote. I critically utilize all of the resources available to me in my decision-making, such that I know I've made the best possible vote moving forward. I believe that we can make a life together that is desirable here in East Brunswick. We all have the opportunity to enjoy the services that our township provides, with remarkable programming through recreation and parks, aging, the library, public works, water and sewer, recycling, to name but a few, our township is ever evolving and dependent on the input from folks like you, our residents. I respectfully ask for your confirmation for our team. Dana Winston, Jim Wendell, and Dana Zambicki, and myself, Kevin McEvoy. Experienced, responsible leaders who can govern through responsible budgeting, creative programming, and trustworthy implementation of resolutions and ordinances. With that, thank you and good evening.
Thank you very much. Next closing statement is from Jim Wendell.
Thank you, Dr. Broadman. Listen, I'd like to go off script here a little bit, only because some of the statements that have been made seem to be somewhat slanderous or they're, Mr. Herrera claims that, says that I worked for Russo Development. Russo Development, as you know, was not the original redeveloper. They were brought in as a partner after we named River Development. That was not our choice. That was not, we just had to approve it. It had nothing to do with anything. I only worked there for 16 months if you looked at my LinkedIn page. I've been gone at it from Russo Development for more than 10 years. So to make a statement that I somehow, or...
All I said was you worked for him.
Excuse me. It's my time. Excuse me. And Mr. Shah, to say that those developments are not, or those renters over there are not paying taxes. People who rent do not pay taxes, as you are probably well aware. The owner of the property pays their fair share. And actually, those properties are now going to be turning in far more revenues than they did before. And Mr. Herrera, to make a statement that we did not publish it correctly or what have you for the planning board meeting is erroneous and irrelevant, because it was published as per state statutes. So everything went on above board. Thank you. We, as a team, our team, work tirelessly and will continue to do so. We will look for more ways to increase township revenues and continue to seek more ways to save money. The Column B team is the team that has done more for East Brunswick with our team's endless amount of volunteering within the community. There is no comparison that the McEvoy, Winston, Wendell, Zambicki team is the most dedicated to the East Brunswick and its residents. If you've received a mail-in ballot, please complete it, drop it in the mail. If you're voting in person, please be sure to get to the polls on November 8th. Make your voice heard this November. Vote Column B and support the team of McEvoy, Winston, Wendell, and Zambicki. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last of our closing statements will come from Dana Winston.
Thank you. I am confident that my unique background will bring new perspective to our town council. As a small business owner, I appreciate the many challenges other businesses face, which often affect the town as well. As a longtime volunteer, I understand the vast network of people and systems in place that keep us thriving as we do. Governance is complex. It takes dedication, perseverance, and strength of character. My style is not complicated. Truly seeking first to understand before being understood, I recognize that no one person has all the answers, but collectively, as a community, we do. A core belief of mine is a goal without a plan is only a wish. I will collaborate with our township administration, and more importantly, our community, to plan carefully, responsibly, respectfully, and intelligently, so that families can continue to move here for a better life for their children, just as my parents did for us. Thank you once more for this opportunity. Please remember to vote Column B for myself and my team members, Kevin McEvoy, Jim Wendell, and Dana Zambicki. We are experienced that you can trust. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all that we have time for this evening. Thank you to the candidates and the reporter for participating in EBTV's Township Council Candidates Forum. This program will run on EBTV until the election and is available on demand. Just go to www.ebtv.org under 2022 election programming. Election day is Tuesday, November 8th. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can check the Township's website under Township Clerk, Elections Information for more information, or call 732-390-6850 for your exact polling location. Also, the state has approved early voting from October 29th to November 6th at the East Brunswick Community Arts Center. The hours are Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. If voting with a vote-by-mail ballot, they can be dropped off at the designated drop box, which is located on the court side of the municipal parking lot. I would be remiss as a retired civics teacher if I did not, at this time, tell people that it is so important for you to participate, as we, the people, are the ones who are in charge of this democratic system. So I ask you to become aware, hopefully this has helped you become aware of the differing issues, make your determinations, and come out to vote. It is one of the most important civic duties that we have. My name is Alan Broadman, and thank you for watching.